Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're going to do some vascular health testing at home. I'm Dr. Twyman, still a board-certified cardiologist. I did pass my recertification test this past weekend. The topics of the year were vascular heart disease and adult congenital heart disease in the adults. Not the easiest topic for somebody who hasn't seen those patients in 10 years, but got it done. So, still board-certified. I'll be back a little bit more on social media now that I haven't had to be head down studying for the past 2 weeks. Tomorrow I'll be heading to Las Vegas to go to the annual A4M conference on longevity. I have the honor to speak on Wednesday at a pre-conference talking about vascular health, and a lot of the toys that I have tonight are things I'm going to be showing to the audience there. So there's going to be a little bit of a sneak peek of what I'll be demoing to some of the attendees to the event. So vascular disease is still the #1 thing that takes people out before they're ready. I just saw a report that's out in JACC today that the global incidence of cardiovascular disease continues to rise, and blood pressure is still the #1 risk factor, which, for very low cost, you should be able to know what your blood pressure is and start working on optimizing it through lifestyle, supplements, and medications. So we'll start with that first. So blood pressure is a good marker of endothelial health. The endothelium is the inner lining of your arteries. If your endothelium is damaged, you're setting yourself up to develop plaque in your arteries 10 years or more down the road. So start with blood pressure. Your blood pressure ideally should be less than 20 millimeters over 80 millimeters of mercury, 120 over 80 or less. The risk starts increasing when your blood pressure is over 110 over 70. You shouldn't use necessarily medications to lower that low, but risk starts increasing over 110 over 70. So my natural resting blood pressure is generally about 105 over 70 or so. And I monitor it, not every day, but a couple times a week usually. Typically, I use the Omron Evolve. It's a bicep cuff. That's the most sensitive test to use at home, is using a bicep cuff. The majority of the risk-based ones are generally fairly inaccurate. I do have one from Omron that I've been playing around with. I had to get it from Europe because it's not sold in the United States. And I have calibrated against my Evolve monitor and also the more sensitive markers that I have at my office at Apollo Cardiology, and it does seem to track pretty well. I like this risk-based one from Omron because you can set it up to do a overnight blood pressure assessment. Most monitors are not able to do that. Your overnight blood pressure should dip at least 10% or more. If it doesn't, there's an issue with cortisol. Potentially you have sleep apnea, and it's an increased risk of heart attack and stroke if your blood pressure does not drop. So this can actually help you monitor blood pressure while you sleep. But there's going to be some newer devices out there that are a little bit less clunky, a little bit easier to use. So blood pressure, how should it be taken? There's a circadian fluctuation in blood pressure. So generally start with checking your morning blood pressure and keeping a trend there. But you may want to check it throughout the day as well to see, do you have different periods of the time of the day where it starts to increase. Ideally, it should be done in a resting position for 5 minutes. No caffeine, alcohol, nicotine on board. Feet flat on the ground, back supported in the chair, and your arms should be supported at heart level, so resting on a table. Start the blood pressure machine and take a recording. If the number is 120 over 80, cool. Keep doing what you're going to do. If it's not, maybe wait a couple minutes, repeat, and then average them out and see if they're really elevated or not. But your blood pressure, if it's over 140 over 90 and you can't get it down with lifestyle or supplements, you may want to start considering pharmaceutical agents to get it down to decrease the shear stress on the endothelium and also decrease the risk of diastolic dysfunction and left ventricular hypertrophy in your heart. So the Omron Evolve or this blood pressure cuff, is a good starting point. I'm not going to give you the name of this because I don't think it's that sensitive, but I do have a watch from China that measures your blood pressure on your wrist with a sphygmomanometer. So there's a little air bladder in this little wrist. I look like the crazy biohackers. I got 10 watches on. Normally, you guys know that I don't like a lot of electronics on myself. This is just for you, and most of the time this stuff would be in airplane mode if I could. But this device, you can actually monitor your blood pressure, so it's probably not going to do great while I'm talking, but we'll just try to go. But has a little screen, tells you what your last blood pressure was. It was 113 over 87 early this morning. So it gives you a little picture. Keep your heart and your hand at the same level, and I can feel it pumping up. And so it's going to take a radial blood pressure. So this is kind of a toy at this point. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for medical monitoring for blood pressure. There are devices coming that should be able to do that in the near future. One of the novel ways to do it at this moment is the BioBeat. The BioBeat is a one-time use device. It's kind of like a Holter monitor. It's very thin. It's a sticker. It's over your chest, and it uses PPG, photoplasmography. It's the same thing that you would see on an Apple Watch, using those lights to read the blood vessels. So it's on your chest wall, over the heart, and every 15 minutes takes a blood pressure, gives you your blood pressure average over 24 hours, gives you your blood pressure load, which is how many times does your blood pressure go over 140/90, but also gives you that dipping status. Does your blood pressure drop 10% while you sleep? If not, you got to figure out why not. Maybe you have sleep apnea. There are companies that are working on PPG kind of wristbands. They are not yet FDA approved. I'm trying to get one from Europe. It's kind of held up in customs at the moment because I would like to try to play around with it before it's kind of released to the wild. But eventually you'll be able to monitor your blood pressure 24 hours at home. Is it going to be absolute as accurate as the sphygmomanometers? Maybe not. So you want to do kind of calibrate your blood pressure cuffs every once in a while. So I often recommend people bring your blood pressure cuff into the office and monitor to see, is your home monitor pretty sensitive to the ones that they're using in the office? Because a lot of people say that they got white coat hypertension, their blood pressure's up because they're nervous. Well, is your blood pressure high all the time, or is it just your device is not accurate at home? So, calibrate your device and see. I just mentioned sleep. Often if you're not sleeping well, if you have sleep apnea, which is highly underdiagnosed, high blood pressure is one of the bigger side effects from untreated sleep apnea. And there are various companies that are making devices that you can do home sleep studies at home. This particular one is the WatchPat. This is one I did a couple years ago. Very novel way to do it. It uses peripheral arterial tone. This is very similar to the EndoPat device that's looking at endothelial function testing. But you have this on your finger. There's a little watch. There's a little wire. I snipped it, but there's a little quarter-size sticker that sits on your sternum and can watch for the rise and fall of your sternum. And if it stops moving, you're not breathing. Records all the data locally on the watch. There's an app on the phone, and in the morning it downloads all the data from the device, sends it to the cloud, and then the sleep specialist interprets it and tells you do you have sleep apnea or not. Like the device, but one challenge is it's a one-time use. You only can use it for one night. Is this a representative type of sleep for you? So there is a newer company that I'm using at Apollo Cardiology, Empower Sleep. I'm going to be going through their program myself pretty soon. I went through their intake, and they're going to ship me out one of their sleep image rings to utilize. So you can basically do a sleep study every single night. It's much more sensitive than the home sleep trackers for sleep, and so I'll share the data as I get it. I'll probably start doing that once I get back from this A4M conference at Vegas. But if you have high blood pressure and you can't get it under control, you may want to consider getting a sleep study. So that's blood pressure. Then things that often can be measured are heart rate. That's pretty straightforward. You can either just physically count your pulse for a minute. You could feel your radial artery, count it. Your heart rate generally should be between 60 and 100. But an even more sensitive marker is heart rate variability. I get this question often. What if I have a low heart rate variability? What does that mean? There's a lot of big genetic influences to heart rate variability, but sometimes it means you're getting sick, you're overtraining, you had too much alcohol the night before. There's something that would cause your body to be under more stress, and that compresses your heart rate variability. But pretty much all these watches, rings, they're not really measuring heart rate variability. They're measuring photoplasmography volume changes, and they're trying to infer what your heart rate variability is. So if you don't think your HRV data makes sense, then you have to use a chest strap to actually measure this. So this sits on your sternum, and there's little electrodes on the back of here that can monitor the electrical signals coming off your myocardium. So this is what I got termed as the Ferrari of heart straps. This is the Frontier X2. Can actually stream a live 1 lead EKG to anybody in the world. You can put it up on a website and people can see what your heart rate is doing at that time. But this can also measure strain. But it's really good at looking at heart rate variability because it's very sensitive. So chest straps to measure heart rate variability are a good idea. If your heart variability is changing for you, that can be a problem. Then some of the more novel devices that I have, two are wrist-based. My current, quote, sleep tracker and maybe activity tracker is the BioStrap. This is the one generation before. There's a new one coming out. I keep going to the website and it always looks like they're out of stock, so it's a little bit more challenging for me to recommend them at this point because it's really hard to get it at this stage. But I like it because, one, it uses red and infrared photoplasmography, so I'm not getting pinged with green light. You can easily put the thing in airplane mode and record data on it and then take it out of airplane mode and download the data off of it. But it measures arterial elasticity and peripheral elasticity. These are two things that I routinely measure in my office with a device called the Max Pulse. The Max Pulse basically assesses how fast can your arteries expand and contract. So as the blood leaves your heart and goes in the arteries should snap back and snap back together. Like an accordion, the faster it does it, the healthier the arteries. This can measure the small blood vessels on your wrist and how fast that process is happening. So it can give you a similar value to what you can do in the office with a Max Pulse. I mentioned blood pressure earlier. In my office I have a device called the Accor. It measures your brachial blood pressure, but also measures your central aortic blood pressure. That's the true blood pressure that your heart arteries, your brain arteries, your kidney arteries sense. It does some fancy physics to be able to calculate that, but essentially the blood leaves your heart, goes down your aorta, hits your legs, and then it bounces back up, and it measures how fast that ratio of blood is coming back up to your arms. So if your central blood pressure is over 120/80, you want to be treating that. But they have a device that's consumer facing. It's the Tic Watch, T-I-C watch. It's okay. It kind of has like an iPhone, Apple Watch type of form factor. It can do all the notification stuff, which is very annoying, so I have those turned off. I don't need it to track exercise, but it has something called ARTI. You can see the little green light shining up now. But you put your finger over this little light, and it does a 10-second recording of the flow through your fingertip, and it gives you your heart rate and such. But it also gives you something called the ARTI score, and then it calculates a vascular age. So the last time I did it, it gave me a 30 to 40-year-old age, which I'll take any day. If you can have your arteries younger than your vascular age, that's Dr. Thomas Sydenham's famous saying from the 1600s, a man is as old as his artery. So this watch can kind of tell you, like, is your exercise, is your nutrition, is your sleep, is your stress management, are your arteries aging appropriately? So I use it as kind of a check engine light. It's sometimes a little bit glitchy to get it to a recording. That's why I'm not super sold on it that everybody should go run out and get a Tic Watch. Hopefully with some firmware updates, it'll eventually be a little more sensitive to be able to get a recording every time that you use it. So because of that, I kind of went back to using a couple other older devices. There's something called the Smart Pulse. This is kind of like the baby brother to the Max Pulse that I use in the office. It's a finger-based technology. It does use Bluetooth to interact with a app on your phone, and it's measuring the arterial elasticity of your arteries. It will give you a vascular age as well. So like it, but this one is a little bit pricey. I believe this one was about $400 or $500 for the Smart Pulse. There's a somewhat of a more consumer-facing device from a company called iHeart. They have a pulse oximeter type form factor, clips to your finger, records similar values of how fast the arteries are expanding and contracting, and it gives you, your arterial age, your pulse wave velocity, and your heart rate. And this comes in, I believe, don't quote me, a little less than $200 for this. And there's a couple different apps that they have. You can use it to meditate. There's like a brain health one, but pretty much gives you the same similar data. But this one is from iHeart, if you're interested. So that's one we talk about a lot because it's pretty sensitive at getting the heart rate right, a little bit more than sometimes the Tic Watch is. And then I think those are the main gadgets I want to kind of show you guys tonight. This week I'll be in Las Vegas talking about vascular health, and so these are the gadgets I'm going to be teaching the attendees to show them how they can monitor some of their patients at home. I'll be definitely talking about my kind of more clinical grade devices, the Max Pulse, the EndoPat. Those are the workhorses in my office, as well as the Accor device. So we're always trying to figure out, how healthy your arteries are, how elastic the arteries are, and when there's a change, you try to figure out what changed in their environment, because often you can make a pretty quick intervention and see the elasticity improving. You don't want to wait until you have an abnormal CIMT and the arteries are inflamed and you got soft plaque. You don't want to wait to have a positive calcium score test. You want to be testing and not guessing, and these devices let you do that at home. So I think I saw a couple comments pop up. If they're kind of related to vascular health, I'll answer them tonight. But otherwise, next Monday night, 6 p.m. Central Time, we'll go back to the usual Ask Me Anything format. So somebody's asking about familial hyperlipidemia. I'll hold off on that. I'll probably do a whole talk on that some Monday night. All right. So yeah, there's a couple questions about lipids. I'm going to hold off on answering any lipid-related questions tonight. There's more just about kind of how to use these at-home vascular health toys, as I call them. Follow me in my stories in the next couple of days. I'll be posting my experiences at the Vegas A4M Longevity Conference. If I learn some cool stuff, I'll share them in the stories first. But I'll see you guys next Monday. So have a great week.